My family called my son too much and refused to help. So I sold my apartment, and then my ex sent me a box that shattered me. My name's Natalie, and I'm 39 years old. I didn't expect to be here, single mom, rebuilding my life from the ground up. But life doesn't wait around for your plans to work out, does it? I still remember the exact moment everything shattered. It was an ordinary Monday night in Asheville, 2013. I was lying in bed, and Darren, my husband of 9 years, had fallen asleep on the couch. His phone buzzed twice on the nightstand. I looked. I wasn't snooping. I swear I wasn't. But when I saw the name Brooklyn Rose pop up, curiosity won. I opened it. I wish I hadn't. I wish I could erase those screenshots from my memory. Dozens of messages, some explicit, most giddy and romantic, all unmistakably not meant for me. He wasn't even being subtle. The way he wrote to her, like he was free, like I didn't exist, like Caleb didn't exist. When I confronted him the next morning, he didn't deny it. Just sat there, blank-faced, like he'd been waiting for this moment and was relieved to finally be done pretending. The divorce moved quickly. Shockingly civil. Darren signed over the apartment and agreed to keep paying support for Caleb, who was 4 at the time. He even gave up a chunk of our savings, probably to avoid me dragging him through court. At least he spared me that. I kept working my job at a digital strategy firm, nothing glamorous, but steady income. Enough to pay the bills, put food on the table, and build something stable for Caleb. He's 7 now, full of energy, questions, and the kind of bright-eyed optimism that I envy. Every morning, he asks if he can pack his lunch by himself, even though it means I'll have to rearrange half the fridge. Sometimes when he grins, I see pieces of Darren in his face, and it makes my stomach twist in a way I haven't figured out how to control yet. I remind myself it's not Caleb's fault. He's the best part of what's left. The part of this story I haven't told yet is about my family. I come from the kind of people who believe in taking care of your own, but only when it flows in one direction. I send $1,300 every month to my parents, Lois and Stanley, to help cover their mortgage. They're in their early 60s, not sick or disabled, just incredibly skilled at making their financial problems sound like mine. My younger brother Russell and his wife Jenna live in a tiny apartment on the edge of town and are constantly behind on something: rent, car repairs, utility bills, you name it. Every other week, I get a text from Russell that begins with, "I hate to ask," followed by a very specific amount of money and a vague promise to pay me back. Last month it was $420 because Jenna's car just completely died at the worst time. The month before that, it was $280 for some sudden eviction threat. I sent the money both times because apparently I've been cast as the family ATM. The part that hurts the most, though, is how little my family seems to care about Caleb. The first time my mom held him in the hospital, she cooed over how cute he was but handed him back in under a minute. "He's adorable," she said with a polite smile, "but don't expect me to babysit. I'm too old for all that." At the time, I didn't let it sting. I told myself she was just tired, that maybe she'd warm up eventually. But she didn't. Neither did my dad. They've never watched Caleb. Not even once. Not for a single afternoon or a school pickup. Back when Darren and I were both working full-time, we hired a babysitter for the afternoons. Later, when Caleb started school, our neighbor Mrs. Franklin, an elderly widow with a soft spot for him, volunteered to watch him for a small fee until one of us got home. She became our lifeline, especially after the divorce. She'd offer him cookies, ask about his day, let him chatter about dinosaurs for hours without ever once making him feel like a burden. I asked my mom once, gently, if she could fill in one week when Mrs. Franklin had a dentist appointment. "Natalie," she said with that rehearsed tone of patient disapproval, "you know I love him, but he's just too much for us to manage. He's so high energy." We're not 20 anymore. They were 62 and 63 at the time. I let it go. I always let it go. Until Mother's Day last year. Caleb made a card at school, glittery and misspelled and bursting with enthusiasm. "Do you think Grandma will like it?" he asked, carefully adding another sticker to the corner. "Of course she will," I lied, because what else was I supposed to say? The day before the dinner at my parents' house, my mom called. She opened with her usual fake cheer. "Sweetheart, about tomorrow. Just wondering if maybe it'd be better if Caleb didn't come?" I waited, stunned. She went on, oblivious. "It's just, It'll be all adults, and you know how he gets. Running around, getting bored, making noise. It's meant to be a relaxing evening. My hands clenched around the phone. He's 7, Mom. He's not a circus act. He was excited to give you his card. She gave a sigh so long and practiced it could have been a recording. Of course I appreciate it. Just bring the card yourself. It's fine. It wasn't fine. Caleb overheard. I didn't even realize he was standing behind me until I saw his face. Grandma doesn't want me to come, he whispered, eyes wide, voice cracking. Something inside me snapped. I wrapped him in a hug and told him we were going to have our own celebration, just the two of us. I sent the card and the gift with a courier and texted my mom. Won't be attending. Gifts are on the way. Happy Mother's Day. She replied within seconds. That's fine, dear. Thank you for thinking of us. No apology. No concern. Just words typed without emotion. That evening, Jenna posted a video of the family dinner. There they were, my parents, Russell, Jenna, all smiles and wine glasses. And then Jenna stood up, hand on belly, and announced her pregnancy. The room erupted. My mom burst into tears, hugged Jenna like she'd returned from war, and said the words I'd never heard in 7 years of parenting. I'll help with everything. Doctor appointments, baby clothes, babysitting, you name it. I watched it twice, just to be sure. This was the same woman who wouldn't sit with Caleb for half an hour on her own. The woman who banned her grandson from a Mother's Day dinner was now promising the moon to a fetus that didn't even exist yet. I stared at my phone, and for the first time in years, I felt rage uncoiling in my chest like a rope that had finally snapped. I closed the app and looked at Caleb, who was busy building a pillow fort in the living room. Want to make pancakes for dinner? I asked. He grinned and nodded, glitter still stuck to his fingers. And that was the moment I started to let the old version of me die. The problem with keeping peace is that it eventually starts to feel like you're making yourself smaller just to fit into other people's comfort zones. After that Mother's Day fiasco, I tried to pretend everything was fine, like I always did. I didn't stop sending the monthly check to my parents. I still helped Russell and Jenna whenever their bills or excuses caught up with them. But something had changed, and I couldn't unknow it. Every time Caleb asked if Grandma would come to his school recital or if Grandpa might visit the Science Museum with us, I give him the same vague response. Maybe next time, honey. There was never a next time. They never came. They never asked. By early December, I was operating on fumes. Mrs. Franklin told me she'd be heading to Arizona for a month to visit her daughter, so I arranged for shorter shifts at work. I figured I'd just juggle everything myself like always. I was used to it. What I didn't expect was to end up sprawled across a frozen sidewalk at 8:30 a.m. on a Wednesday morning, staring at the sky with my leg twisted at an angle it shouldn't be. I'd stepped on black ice in front of my building while juggling Caleb's backpack and my purse, and the pain hit before I even hit the ground. Some kind couple called the ambulance while I tried not to scream in front of their toddler. The ER visit confirmed what I already feared. A full fracture. 6 weeks in a cast, minimum. I didn't cry until they were wheeling me out, mostly because I didn't want to think about how I was supposed to handle work, parenting, cooking, and school pickups when I couldn't even walk. I called my mom from the hospital. Voice shaking, pain meds kicking in. I told her what happened and asked if she could pick Caleb up from school that afternoon and maybe stay with him until I got home. There was a long pause. Don't you have that neighbor still? She asked finally, as if I hadn't just told her Mrs. Franklin was out of town. Mom, please, I said. I wouldn't ask if I had anyone else. She sighed like I'd asked her to donate a kidney. Fine. I'll go. What time? Relief poured through me, but it was short-lived. When I got home that evening, my friend Lisa helped me inside. Caleb was playing on the floor with his toy dinosaurs, and my mom was sitting on the couch, scrolling her phone with a look that could curdle milk. Your son has a lot of energy, she said by way of greeting. He wouldn't stop moving. And I didn't know what to make him for dinner, so I didn't. I looked in the kitchen. No dishes, no food. Nothing. Thanks for staying, I muttered. She was already grabbing her coat and heading for the door. Your father's waiting on me for dinner. Take care of that leg. She didn't even say goodbye to Caleb. The next morning, still aching and on crutches, I called her again. Mom, I need help, I said, trying to keep my voice even. Just for a few weeks. Can you take Caleb to and from school? Her tone changed immediately. Cold. Flat. Absolutely not, Natalie. I'm not a chauffeur. I'm not a nanny. You have money, hire someone. I just thought, considering everything I've done for you, that's not my problem, she snapped. You chose to have a child. He's your responsibility. And then she hung up. Just like that. No hesitation. I sat there on the couch for 20 minutes, just staring at my phone. Then I called Russell. I knew Jenna wasn't working right now. She'd taken a leave from the pet grooming place while pregnant, and I figured maybe they could help with pickups. That's not going to work, he said, cutting me off before I could even finish. Jenna's resting. You know, for the baby. Then I heard her voice in the background, and she grabbed the phone. Megan, I'm 5 months pregnant. I can't be running around after your kid. We have our own stuff going on. We're going on our baby moon in 2 days. I didn't even know what a baby moon was. I just know that the call ended and I sat in the same spot, leg throbbing, heart sinking. That evening, I called Lisa and told her everything. I don't even know how I got the words out between the tears. I'm not asking for luxury, I said. I just need someone to help me make sure my son gets to school. She was quiet for a second and then said, I know someone, her name's Diane. She's a retired teacher, does part-time childcare. Let me text her. An hour later, Diane showed up at my apartment with a warm smile and calm energy that made Caleb gravitate toward her instantly. She asked him about his favorite subject. He told her about planets and dinosaurs, and before I knew it, they were giggling over some fossil fact I couldn't even pronounce. We worked out a plan. She'd drive him to school, pick him up, and stay until my work-from-home shift ended. Her rate was more than I liked, but I had no options. After she left, I sat on the couch with my leg propped up and stared at the wall. I opened my banking app and stared at the automatic transfer I'd been sending my parents every month for 7 years. $1,300. I canceled it. Then I took a screenshot of the confirmation and sent it to my mother along with one sentence. I won't be helping with your mortgage anymore. And I'm done financially supporting Russell and Jenna. No threats. No explanations. Just a final line in the sand. The response was immediate. My phone lit up with calls, then texts. My mother first. Natalie, what is wrong with you? This is not how we raised you. My father's message followed. I'm so disappointed. The mortgage is due next week. Russell's text was simpler. Seriously? You're screwing over your own family. But Jenna's was the one that made me laugh in disbelief. We had to cancel our vacation because of you. Do you know how stressful this pregnancy has been? I turned off my phone and went to bed early. Caleb snored softly from his room. And I realized I hadn't felt this peaceful in years. The days that followed were the calm after a storm I didn't even know I'd survived. Diane showed up every morning, always on time, always kind. Caleb adored her. He'd come home bubbling with stories about recess and what they saw on the way back. I started noticing that he seemed lighter, happier, like something in him had relaxed now that he wasn't being ignored or shushed. And for the first time, I wasn't holding everything together with sheer panic. My work improved. I slept better. I breathed easier. But the calm didn't last. The calls picked up again, now from different numbers. My parents, Russell, even Jenna tried from a blocked line. I ignored them all. One afternoon, my boss Eric called to check in and mentioned that someone claiming to be my father had tried to reach me at the office. He asked if everything was okay. I explained as briefly as I could. He didn't press. If there's anything we can do, let me know, he said. And if you ever want out of Asheville, there's a marketing lead opening in Bozeman. I laughed, thinking he was joking. He wasn't. Think about it, he said. Might be time for a fresh start. And that was when the idea took root. Not as an impulse, but as something long overdue. I didn't tell anyone I was leaving. Not my parents, not Russell, not even Darren. The last thing I needed was another wave of guilt-drenched pleas or angry accusations about abandoning the family. Instead, I started quietly putting things in motion. I called the realtor I'd used years ago when Darren and I first moved into the apartment, and she was thrilled to help me list it. The market's hot right now, she said. You'll probably get over asking. That was the first piece of luck I'd had in months. Within 3 weeks, we had multiple offers. I accepted the cleanest one and set the closing date without fanfare. While the paperwork processed, I looked into Bozeman. It felt far enough to breathe, but not so far that it would be impossible to get back if I ever needed to. Mountains, fresh air, small-town pace, and good public schools. Everything Asheville no longer offered me. I found a modest two-bedroom rental through a local agent and put down a deposit. Then I told Eric I was taking the offer. Good, he said. They need someone grounded and sharp. You'll be brilliant. I didn't feel brilliant. I felt tired, raw, but determined to never put myself or Caleb in that old cycle again. Once the move was official, I started packing up our lives in cardboard boxes. Diane noticed. You're really doing it, she said with a soft smile. It's time, I told her. And I don't think I've ever meant anything more. She hugged me, tighter than I expected, and promised to stop by before we left. Caleb was surprisingly excited. When I told him we were moving, his first question wasn't about school or friends. It was, will we still get pancakes on Saturdays? I promised we would. Can we get a dog? He added. That one took me a minute. But eventually, I said yes. He beamed like I'd handed him the moon. The day we left, it was raining, fitting for a goodbye I didn't announce. I handed the keys to the new buyers, thanked my landlord, and boarded a plane with Caleb holding my hand tightly. He looked out the window and asked, do you think Grandma and Grandpa will come visit us? I told him the truth as gently as I could. I don't think so, sweetheart. But that's okay. We're going to make something special just for us. He nodded and leaned against me, eyes wide as the clouds swallowed the old skyline. Bozeman was colder, cleaner, quieter. The air smelled like pine and snow. And the first morning we woke up in our new rental, Caleb insisted we take a walk even though my leg was still stiff and sore. We bundled up and wandered through a small trail behind the house. He pointed out every squirrel and patch of ice like it was a wonder of the world. I felt something crack open in my chest, something I hadn't felt in years. It was peace, maybe, or relief, or both. Over the next month, we settled into a new rhythm. I threw myself into my work, grateful to be surrounded by colleagues who knew nothing about the mess I'd left behind. Caleb started school and came home full of stories about his new teacher and a boy named Jonah who liked the same books he did. We adopted a golden retriever from a rescue center and named him Ranger. He was older, calm, and immediately bonded with Caleb like they'd known each other forever. Saturdays became pancake days again, with Ranger curled up at Caleb's feet while he added way too many chocolate chips to the batter. I didn't hear from anyone in my family until almost 8 weeks after we moved. The first call came from a number I didn't recognize, but the area code was unmistakable back in Asheville. I let it go to voicemail. Then a second call. This time, a message. Natalie, it's Carol, your mom's sister. I'm not calling to lecture you. I promise. Just, your parents came by my place. They're worried. They went to your apartment and found strangers living there. They didn't know where you'd gone. They're scared. I sat on the porch swing and listened to it twice. Caleb and Ranger playing in the yard just a few feet away. I didn't call her back. 2 more months passed. Caleb finished the school year with top marks, and I got a surprise bonus from Eric for leading a successful campaign. We planned a camping trip to celebrate. Then, on a quiet Saturday morning, our doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, I nearly dropped my coffee. Standing there, looking older and smaller than I remembered, were Lois and Stanley. My parents. Right there on my new front porch, holding a printed photo of Caleb and me that I'd posted months ago on a private account. My heart dropped into my stomach. How did you find me? I asked, not inviting them in. My dad cleared his throat and looked away. Darren told us, he muttered. We begged him. I cursed myself for not thinking of that sooner. I'd kept Darren in the loop for Caleb's sake, but it never occurred to me that he might share my new address. What do you want? I asked, keeping my voice low so Caleb wouldn't hear. We just want to talk, my mother said. Her voice was softer than I'd heard in years. Please. I agreed to meet them across the street at a small cafe. I asked my neighbor, a kind woman named June, to watch Caleb for an hour. At the cafe, my parents were already seated, 2 untouched coffees on the table between them. My dad looked like he hadn't slept. My mom looked brittle, like someone had chipped away at the edge of her control. You look good, my dad said as I sat down. I am good, I replied. So is Caleb. My mom nodded, lips thin. We came because we realized, well, we've made mistakes. A lot of them. I waited. No point in filling the silence. She finally spoke again. Jenna had her baby. A girl. Her name's Hannah. They're struggling. Russell took a second job, but they're barely holding things together. And you're here because you want money? I asked, already knowing. No, my dad said quickly. We're here because we miss you. And Caleb, we want to be part of your lives again. We're not asking for money. My mom leaned forward. We want to be real grandparents now. We want to help. I laughed before I could stop myself. You want to help now? After 7 years of rejecting Caleb? After all the times you told me you were too tired, too old, too busy? Now that I've cut you off, suddenly you remember how to be family. My mother flinched. It's not like that. It's exactly like that, I said. You didn't show up for us when it mattered. And now that you're on the outside, you want back in. My father looked down. We've made mistakes, Natalie. Yes, I agreed. You made your choices. And I made mine. I stood up, pushing in the chair. I'm not interested in rebuilding something that was never whole to begin with. You're not entitled to Caleb just because your guilt finally caught up to you. My mother's voice cracked. He's your brother. That baby is your niece. And you all made it very clear I was only valuable when I was giving. I said, I'm done being useful. Then I walked out, without looking back, and went home where my son and our dog waited, where peace wasn't something I had to buy with silence. 2 weeks passed without a word from my parents after that last conversation in the cafe. And for a while, I thought maybe it was truly over, that I had drawn a line they would finally respect, not because they understood or accepted it, but because they had no choice left. I didn't expect them to apologize or suddenly grow empathy after all these years, but I had quietly hoped they would let go. I should have known better. When I didn't answer their follow-up calls, they switched to emails. When I blocked those, they used mutual friends, relatives I hadn't spoken to in years, trying to act like concerned parties. Your mom is so heartbroken. One cousin messaged me on Facebook. She cries every night about not seeing Caleb. I stared at the message and wondered if it was the same woman who'd once told me, flat out, that my child was too hyper to be around adults. I ignored them all. I had nothing left to say. Life in Bozeman had finally started to feel like mine, not a temporary pause or a hiding place, but a space I had carved out with my own hands. I bought furniture that wasn't handed down or borrowed. I joined a book club. I made friends with a few parents from Caleb's school. The mornings were still hectic. School drop-offs, work calls, spilled cereal, forgotten homework, but I wasn't overwhelmed anymore. And most nights, when the dishes were done and Caleb was brushing his teeth while Ranger dozed by the couch, I felt a calmness I didn't trust at first, like waiting for a storm I could still feel in my bones. But then, just as I started to believe I might be free, my father showed up at my workplace. It was a Tuesday morning, mid-July, and I had just finished a video call with the marketing team when I saw the front desk receptionist walk toward my office with an awkward look. There's a man asking for you, she whispered. He said he's your father. Do you want me to tell him you're unavailable? My stomach turned, but I nodded. Please, I said. And let security know he's not welcome here again. I closed my office door and stood there, gripping the edge of my desk until my fingers ached. 10 minutes later, I texted my boss Eric to explain. Take the rest of the day, he said. And if this keeps happening, we'll back you up legally. That night, after I got Caleb to bed, I sat at the kitchen table and made a decision I'd been circling around for weeks. I pulled out my laptop and started looking at real estate listings. Not to move again, not to flee, but to plant something real. I found a 3-bedroom house near the edge of town with a fenced yard and a view of the mountains. It had a wood-burning fireplace, a small garden, and a porch swing that faced the sunrise. I knew instantly it was the one. Within 2 weeks, the papers were signed and we were moving again, this time just a few miles away, but it felt like a continent. Caleb painted his new room bright green and covered the walls with posters of planets and dinosaurs. Ranger claimed the window seat in the living room as his napping throne. I unpacked every box with care, refusing to let anything feel temporary again. We planted flowers in the front yard. We hosted a backyard barbecue with our new neighbors. We laughed so much I forgot what it felt like to brace for the next hit. But my family wasn't done yet. The weekend after we moved in, a letter arrived. Not an email or a text, but an actual letter in my mailbox with no return address. Inside was a single page, handwritten by my mother. The words were neat, rehearsed, and cold. Natalie, it's beyond disappointing how you've chosen to isolate your son from his family. Caleb deserves to know where he comes from. We are still his blood, whether you like it or not. You may have moved away, but that doesn't change who we are to him. One day, he will ask questions, and when that happens, we'll be ready to tell him the truth. The truth. As if she'd ever known how to speak it without twisting it into something that served her narrative. I burned the letter in the fireplace that night, watching the flames curl around her words like they were never meant to last. I didn't respond. Not then. Not ever. The next incident came during Caleb's school open house. As we were walking toward the building, hand in hand, I saw someone across the parking lot standing near the tree line. It was Jenna. She was holding a baby in a pink blanket, and I froze in place. Caleb tugged at my arm, not noticing. She didn't wave. She didn't speak. She just watched us, her mouth tight, her expression unreadable. I turned around without a word and took Caleb home. That night, I sent a message to my attorney and asked her to draft a cease and desist letter. Enough was enough. The letter went out by certified mail, addressed to my parents and to Russell and Jenna. It laid everything out clearly. No contact, no surprise visits, no involvement in Caleb's life unless explicitly permitted by me. Any further attempts would be considered harassment and responded to accordingly. I didn't expect it to stop them completely, but it did slow things down. For a while, there was silence again. A few weeks later, I was sitting on the porch watching Caleb and Ranger chase each other across the yard when I heard a car pull up. My heart clenched, but when I stood up, I saw it was Darren's sedan. He got out holding a large box. "It's just some of Caleb's old things," he said. "Books, photos, a few drawings." I nodded, not inviting him in. "You gave them our address," I said quietly. He didn't deny it. "They were desperate," he said. "I didn't think they'd actually go that far." I didn't respond. There was nothing else to say. He left the box and drove away, and I brought it inside and left it untouched in the hallway for days. Eventually, I opened it. Inside were some old family photos, ones I'd forgotten even existed. Caleb as a toddler on Christmas morning. Me and Darren smiling stiffly at some barbecue years ago. A few pages from Caleb's preschool notebook where he'd written, "My mommy is the best," in shaky crayon letters. I didn't cry, not then. I just sat on the floor and stared at it all, feeling 1,000 versions of myself pass through that one moment. The one who gave too much. The one who asked for nothing. The one who finally said no. I never told Caleb about the letters, or the parking lot, or the phone calls to my job. He didn't need to carry any of that. What he needed was a mom who showed up, who laughed at his jokes, who made pancakes on Saturday and told him the world was still good. What he needed was a home, not a war zone. And I was finally giving him that. Some nights, when he's asleep and the house is quiet, I sit on the porch and look at the stars. I think about the family I left behind, not with regret, but with clarity. I gave them years of my life, and when I asked for help, they handed me silence. Now, I give that silence back to them, not out of revenge, but because peace is the only language they never learned to understand. It's strange how quickly new routines become normal once you finally let go of the ones that were quietly destroying you. 3 months passed with no contact from anyone back home. No letters, no phone calls, no unwanted visits. I started to believe it was finally over, not because they understood what they'd done, but because they'd realized I wasn't going to fold. Caleb flourished. He had friends now, real ones, and teachers who actually saw how bright he was. Ranger became our shadow, trailing after him like a second guardian. I stopped checking the mailbox with dread. I stopped flinching at unknown numbers. I started living like the life I built for us was permanent. Then one morning in late October, Caleb came home from school with a permission slip and an excited grin. His class was planning an overnight trip to the state park, and he couldn't wait to go. I signed it without hesitation. The day of the trip, I packed his little overnight bag with extra socks and marshmallows, just like the list suggested. When the bus pulled away, he waved so hard I thought his arm would fly off. I stood in the parking lot long after it disappeared, heart full in a way that felt unfamiliar but good. That night, the house felt too quiet without him. I made tea and sat on the porch, watching the wind rattle the leaves across the lawn. I didn't hear the car until it was already pulling into the driveway. For a moment, I thought it was a neighbor, maybe a lost delivery driver. But when the headlights shut off and the door opened, my stomach dropped. My mother stepped out, holding something in her hand, a framed photo of Caleb from 2 years ago. She looked thinner than I remembered, hair pulled back tight, eyes sunken and worn. I didn't move. "Natalie," she said, voice barely audible. "I know I'm not supposed to be here." I didn't answer. I waited. She looked down at the photo, then back at me. "I just wanted to see him. One last time. But I guess he's not here." "He's not," I said flatly. "And you shouldn't be either." She nodded slowly, holding the frame like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "I miss him," she said. "I think about him every day. About you too." "Funny," I replied. "You never thought about him when I was begging for help with a broken leg and no one else to call." Her face crumpled, and for a second, I almost felt something. But then I remembered the way she stood in my living room, criticizing Caleb like he was a burden she never asked for. I remembered every unreturned favor, every guilt trip, every message that made me question if I was being selfish for wanting the same love they offered so freely to others. She took a shaky breath. "I'm not asking for anything. I wanted you to know that I'm sorry." "You're not sorry," I said. "You're lonely. There's a difference." I could see the truth land behind her eyes, and she didn't deny it. "I thought I had time to fix things," she whispered. "But maybe I don't. I thought you'd come back eventually, that you'd need us again." "I did need you," I said. "You just weren't there when it counted." She stepped back toward her car, fumbling with the door. "If he ever asks about me, tell him I'm sorry." "I won't have to," I said. "He stopped asking a long time ago." She drove away without another word. I stood there until her taillights disappeared behind the curve of the road, and then I went inside and locked the door. I didn't cry. I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt done. A few weeks later, Caleb turned 8. We invited a few of his new friends over for a backyard movie night with popcorn and pizza. He laughed so hard, he nearly fell off the lawn chair. I watched him dance around with Ranger, surrounded by people who chose to be there. People who never made him feel like he was too much. And I realized something important. He was never the problem. I wasn't either. Sometimes I still think about the girl I used to be. The one who paid other people's bills while eating canned soup for dinner. The one who accepted crumbs and called it love. I don't hate her. I feel sorry for her. She tried. She gave. She waited. But eventually, even she realized that blood means nothing if it drains you dry. We built something better out here, just the two of us and a dog with a goofy grin. I don't know what the future holds, but I know we won't ever go back. Not for guilt, not for nostalgia, not for anyone who only shows up when they need something. Caleb is my family. Ranger is my family. The people we choose, those are the ones who matter. Everything else, I left behind. And I don't regret it for a second.